So after I did my video on the Illegear Ionic, some of you wanted me to take a look at more creator-focused laptops and asked in the comments if I could take a look at the MSI Modern 14 as well. And yes, to prove that I do listen to you guys, I reached out to MSI and, well, they sent me the Prestige 14 instead. So I'm sorry I tried. So anyway, today we'll be taking a look at the Prestige 14, and I've got to say guys that this is actually quite a big thing for me because the last time that I used and owned an MSI laptop was back in 2013 with the MSI GE14 Dragon Eyes, and that laptop had pretty bad build quality and it overheated 9 ways to Sunday. Will this laptop suffer the same fate of the MSIs of my past? Well, actually, this is filmed after I've already done my data collection, research and findings, so let's just say that you might want to stick around because there are a number of things that you should know before committing to one of these. You can bet as per usual, I'll go into detail over every single one of them. So with that said, let's get deep into the MSI Prestige 14. So let's start off with who this laptop is for. The MSI Prestige 14 is targeted towards creators, so people who do more video and photo editing or maybe development work, who are looking for a thin and light notebook that they can travel and work with, and the specs reflect this. It comes with an Intel Comet Lake Core i7-10710U that has 6 cores and 12 threads and can single core boost up to 4.7 GHz. And yes, Comet Lake means that it's 14nm plus. There's no gaming GPU here, so aside from the standard Intel UHD graphics, you get an Nvidia MX250 with 2GB of GDDR5 DRAM. There's a single stick of 16GB DDR4 Samsung RAM, so that means no dual channel memory. And in terms of storage, you get a 512GB stick of Western Digital SN730 and NVMe SSD. The display is a 14-inch IPS and is calibrated to about 100% sRGB and about 72% NTSC. Keeping you connected is an Intel Wi-Fi 6 AX201, which is very nice to see. And finally, keeping it all alive is a 50 watt-hour battery. As usual, I like tearing down my laptops to have a look inside, and doing so is relatively easy. You remove the 7 screws holding the back plate in, and then using a plastic pry tool so as to not scratch the metal, slowly lift the edges up until the whole thing comes loose. Once it's off, we get a good look at the components inside of it, but more importantly the cooling solution, which is a singular fan with 2 heat pipes bringing the heat away from the CPU and the GPU. We saw a similar approach used in the Illegear Ionic 15 that I looked at earlier, so it would be interesting to see if the same solution keeps up with the slightly beefier 6-core 12-thread processor in this machine. Now let's put the laptop back together and have a look at the body of the laptop. I really like the color of the laptop. MSI calls it carbon grey, but I find that it looks more like a deep shade of navy blue with shiny metallic chamfered accent edges all over the laptop. There is a MSI Dragon logo on the lid of the laptop, and while I do think that it looks a bit gamery, I still think it does look better than just an MSI logo. And if you didn't notice it before, the bottom ventilation holes of the laptop actually look like an audio waveform, which I think is pretty cool and is a pretty nice touch. Over on the left of the laptop, the first cardinal sin, a micro SD card slot. I've said this before and I will say it again. If you're targeting something towards creators, you're effectively alienating photographers and a lot of videographers by not including a full-sized SD card slot. They make up for it a little by including 2 Thunderbolt-capable USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type-C ports here that can be also used to charge the laptop via USB power delivery with a charging and power indicator here as well. But all that goodwill is instantly destroyed the moment we look on the right and we see 2 USB Type-A ports. Now, there's of course nothing inherently wrong with USB Type-A ports, in fact I love them. But here's the big problem. They're both USB 2.0. Yeah, USB 2.0 in 2020. This had actual repercussions for me when using this laptop as I tried to make a Windows bootable USB, but I had to stop myself from using this laptop to do it because it would copy way too slow. And when I wanted to use this laptop to record using my USB 3.0 video capture card, I had to stop as well because I had the realization that it would just be capped at USB 2.0 speeds, and that wouldn't work at all. For a creator-focused laptop, I find this thing to be absolutely appalling. You know what? Maybe MSI got the whole memo wrong, you know? MSI, 2020 does not mean two USB 2.0 ports. Because 2.0 is... yeah. Here's another thing as well though. Why group the ports on either side? I would have liked to see one of each port on each side instead, so that not only can you have, let's say, a USB stick or something else plugged in that doesn't get in the way of the mouse, but if you ever need to charge your laptop and it's more convenient to do so on the right, well, then you can do so as well. Yeah, I don't know, but I guess it is what it is. At least you still get a 3.5mm headphone and microphone jack here, which is more than what I can say about today's flagship phones. And well, there isn't any sign of any display out ports, so I guess if you need it, you're going to have to get a dongle to use with one of the Thunderbolt ports. Anyway, all in all, the laptop weighs in at about 1.29 kilograms, which is fairly light and it's fairly compact as well at 319mm wide, 215mm in depth, and 15.9mm thick. Overall, the laptop feels incredibly solid, sturdy, and well built for me, which is a relief because the MSI GE40 that I used in the past was pretty bad, so it makes me happy to see that those days are somewhat gone. Diverting a little into the power brick, since the laptop itself charges via a Type-C port, the charging brick naturally has a Type-C head and is pretty compact, looks nice, and weighs in at 420 grams. Fun fact, since it's a USB PD compliant charger, it actually charges my phone just fine too. So yeah, that's cool. Probably not MSI endorsed though. Opening the display of the laptop, while it does pass the one-hand opening test with flying colors, I found that the lip of the display was just a little bit too small and made it difficult for my fingers to get in and lift the display up. The display hinges feel really great and solid when opening and closing the display, and the way the hinge is set up helps to prop the laptop off the table just a little bit, and I like this as it helps with two things: helping the laptop get more air for better ventilation from down below, and also putting the laptop's keyboard at a slight angle that helps with the ergonomics of the keyboard. MSI also touts an extra feature in that the display can actually go flat, which they say is useful for meetings and presentations, but I wasn't particularly sold on this. You get an MSI logo below the display, and speaking of display, it is a 60Hz panel and is the CMN14D5 that is made by Innolux. So while I liked that it was really color accurate and had good image quality and viewing angles, I found that it neither got dim enough in a dark room nor bright enough to be used outdoors, which meant that it was either blasting my retinas out or making me squint to read whatever was on screen. The matte coating on the display was also extremely prone to glare, and there isn't any kind of auto brightness here, which would have been really nice to see on such a premium laptop. Finally, moving higher, we have the webcam that supports Windows Hello. But the image and sound quality isn't really anything to shout home about. In fact, I find it merely passable, and I guess it's better than nothing. Well, at least there is a webcam to do all of our Zoom calls that we've been doing so much of due to the current times. Going below the display and looking at the keyboard, I really enjoyed typing on it, as I found that the keys had a really satisfying keystroke with a great typing experience, and the backlight looks great from behind the keys. But if they're too bright, you can always cycle through the brightness using the function keys in 4 increments, including off. And speaking of function keys, you can also cycle through your power profiles here, and in case you're worried about your privacy, you can even turn off your microphone and webcam. The power button also lights up in either orange to denote that you're on battery, I believe, or white when you're charging. The one thing, however, that has me stumped is the inclusion of a second backslash key right beside the right control key. I really have no idea what this is for. So if you guys have any idea, make sure to sound off in the comments section down below. We finally get to the touchpad, and this has got to be one of the most satisfying touchpads that I've used on a Windows machine. It's pretty big at 140mm by 70mm, has a fingerprint reader on the top left corner, has good palm rejection, pressing on the buttons have a satisfying and audible click to it. And the surface is incredibly smooth and satisfying to glide my fingers on, with what almost looks like a hydrophobic coating of some sort by the way the water droplets kind of beat up on it a little on the surface. As perfect as the surface is though, there is one particular irregularity on the unit that was sent to me, in that the top right corner of the touchpad actually sinks in, and this has a very annoying effect of the metal edges scraping on your fingers when you hit the top right corner. So I'm pretty sure that this is a build quality defect, and so I'm quite disappointed by this, as it mars an otherwise excellent laptop build. Finally, on the left of the trackpad, we get a cool looking embossed Prestige logo right above the branding stickers. Let's move on to actually using the laptop, starting with the pre-installed software, because MSI has actually got quite a number that comes bundled with the Prestige 14. It's interesting to see a laptop that is targeted towards creators be bundled with software for, creators, in what looks like a partnership between Cyberlink and MSI, with apps like Audio Director, Color Director, Photo Director, Power Director, and Music Maker Jam. Alongside those, you have the MSI Creator app, which allows you to set individual profiles for applications with things like how many cores and which cores they use, optimizations and application priorities, and also system status readouts and specs, a quick access to system-wide settings like DPI, the MSI True Color, the Nahimic profiles, toggling on and off the Windows key and webcam, the ability to swap around the FN and Windows key, and system-wide power profile shortcuts. Finally, there's also the option to tune your battery, and I've gotta say that while I'm not really someone for using these kinds of apps, what MSI has here feels really good and is something that I can see myself using, as it really does feel like it's catered towards creators with deep controls into your system. Moving on, MSI True Color allows you to set and tune your display profiles, which I really liked, and I have mine set to designer, and Nahimic really allows you to tune the audio profile in your system with even more options for noise reduction for your microphone. Just about the only thing I didn't really like is the inclusion of Norton Home Security, but I mean, that's just more of a preference because I don't really like Norton, and MSI Image Recovery Backup. That one is just annoying, as until you disable it, every time you boot up your PC, there's a notification that pops up. All in all though, none of those pre-installed software had any perceived effect on the usage of the laptop, as using it just flew through all the standard tasks that I threw at it, and the laptop remained extremely quick and responsive the whole time. The speakers on the laptop are bottom firing and don't sound all too bad either. Now onto performance. Typing up this review in Google Docs while watching some YouTube videos, the cooling fan in the system kept it under control with an average temperature of 47 degrees Celsius at a room ambient of 30. Fan noise didn't go out of control either and was barely audible during this time. When I started pushing the system though, that's when it started to heat up. To simulate someone who might do some 3D or video rendering on the go, I ran the BMW Blender benchmark, where it finished the benchmark in 9 minutes and 26 seconds and ran at an average all-core clock of 1.7 to 1.8 GHz with a core package temperature of 72 degrees Celsius. And oh man, maybe it's just the side effect of using aluminum, but you could really feel the heat from the CPU permeating through the keyboard to the point where it could get a little bit uncomfortable. The same happened when I ran the gaming benchmark of Neon Noir, where the system hit 74 degrees Celsius on both the CPU and GPU. And you know what? Normally this is okay because I've had laptops that go much higher than this, but the aluminum body really lets you know that, hey, I'm running pretty hot here. I'm not sure if it's because of this, but strangely enough, it also did score lower in this benchmark versus the Iligear Ionic, even though they both have the same GPU, and the Prestige 14 even has the beefier CPU. I'm just gonna say that given the thermal performance, I am honestly a bit worried for the higher end variant that swaps out the MX250 for a GTX 1650. There is no way that combination is not going to thermal throttle, especially if you're planning to game on it. As expected as well, as soon as I put a load on the laptop, the fans became audible, but then again, it's not too bad. As a bit of an extra, I benchmarked this system with Cinebench R20 and it scored a multi-threaded score of 1409 and a single core score of 323. Finally, moving on to the battery life, typing up this review while watching videos on YouTube drained my battery from 100 to 0% in 5 hours and 45 minutes. While it's not really a bad result, I did expect more out of it given the battery performance of the Ionic 15, but with a battery half the size and a more power-hungry processor, I guess the outcome isn't exactly surprising. So I think it's just about time to wrap things up with the Prestige 14. Honestly, there are quite a number of things that I like about this laptop. The build quality, the display, the keyboard, the trackpad surface, but for all the good, there are things that also make me question why. The lack of a full-sized SD card slot, only USB 2.0 for the Type A ports, not having a Type C port for each side, the thermals, the trackpad surface anomaly, and the battery, well, some of those are good enough to be deal-breaking for me, especially since I'm a creator myself, and especially since this laptop doesn't exactly come cheap at 4,900 ringgit or about 1,123 US dollars. For me, at that price point, I expect a bit more. Still, I'm sure that for many other people, the Prestige 14 is a perfect fit, and so if it's for you, then I'd say go for it. As for myself though, the title of the perfect creator laptop still remains vacant. Look, I know for sure that I am going to miss the keyboard and trackpad of this laptop after I return it, but you know, oh well. If you enjoyed this video, you can do the usual YouTube thing of giving a like, subscribing to my channel, dropping a comment down below on what you think about the MSI Prestige 14 and maybe what you would like to see from me in the future. Don't forget to get notified for when any of my new videos go live with the bell icon, and I guess that's it. My name is Yang, the Tech Rodent, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Yes.